What if your loneliness was not a curse? What if your rejection was not punishment? What if your isolation was not the end of your story, but the sacred beginning of your becoming? What if the doors that closed were never meant to open? What if the people who walked away were never meant to stay? What if every silence, every delay, every moment of emptiness you feared was actually God's hand covering you, protecting you, preparing you for so long? We have been taught to see loneliness as weakness. We've been told that isolation means we are forgotten. We believe that rejection is failure. And yet, if you look closely, if you listen beyond the surface of your pain, there is another story unfolding. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not left out. You are hidden, and not hidden as in lost, not hidden as in abandoned, but hidden because you were chosen. Why you were hidden? Think of the seed buried beneath the soil. To the unseeing eye, it looks like nothing. It looks like death, silence, obscurity. But beneath the surface, in the hidden place, something holy is happening. The seed is breaking open. The husk is dying so that the life inside can live. It is in the hiddenness that the roots grow deep. It is in the hiddenness that the foundation is laid. And so it is with you. Your isolation has not been a punishment. It has been a womb. Your rejection has not been destruction. It has been redirection. Your loneliness has not been emptiness. It has been divine protection. The noise that buried you. You see, before the isolation, you were surrounded by noise. Noise of opinions, noise of expectations, noise of comparison, culture, society, family, friends. Noise that told you who to be, what to chase, how to think, what to fear. And slowly, over time, that noise buried something precious. It buried the voice of your own soul. It buried the still, small whisper of God within you. You began to mistake the voice of others for the voice of truth. You began to live not from the center of your being, but from the surface of survival. And so, God, in His mercy, allowed the noise to fall away. Through disappointment, through betrayal, through rejection, through isolation, not to destroy you, but to bring you back. The purpose of isolation. Isolation is not the absence of presence. It is the presence of God without distraction. It is the stripping away of illusions so that you can finally see clearly. It is the sacred undoing of everything false. When the people left, you thought you were abandoned. But in truth, you were being freed. When the doors closed, you thought you had failed. But in truth, you were being redirected. When silence surrounded you, you thought you were forgotten. But in truth, you were being refined. So now, take a breath. Close your eyes. Feel the air move gently into your lungs. Let out slowly. Notice the silence around you. Notice that even here, even in your solitude, there is a presence that has never left you. The mind may tell you that you are alone, but deeper than the mind, in the quiet of the heart, there is a knowing, there is a stillness. There is God, the hidden hand of God. I know this path because I too have walked it. I too have felt the sting of rejection, the ache of loneliness, the heaviness of isolation. But what I discovered was this. God does not isolate to punish. God isolates to protect. God does not remove people to harm. God removes them to reveal. Every betrayal revealed the truth. Every disappointment revealed a direction. Every silence revealed a deeper sound, the eternal sound of God's presence within. A season of refinement. Do not mistake your hidden season as delay. It is refinement. It is purification. It is the burning away of illusions that were never yours to carry. You are not behind in life. You are exactly where you are meant to be, because only in this hiddenness could you be stripped of what is false, so that the true you, the soul, the light, the chosen one, could finally emerge. And so, this message is not just words. It is an invitation to see your loneliness differently, to see your isolation differently, to see your rejection differently, to stop fighting the silence and instead enter it, to stop fearing the solitude and instead embrace it, to stop resenting the rejection and instead recognize it as protection, because hiddenness is not the end. It is the sacred preparation for what comes next. So let us walk this journey together, from noise to silence, from rejection to revelation, from loneliness to divine fullness, from hiddenness to chosenness. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not abandoned. You are chosen. And because you are chosen, you were hidden. Chapter 1. The Sacred Veil of Isolation, the noise of the world and the burial of the soul's voice. For most of your life, you were surrounded by noise. Not just the noise of traffic, conversations, or daily distractions, but the deeper noise. The noise of expectations, comparisons, fears, demands, and illusions. This noise is relentless. It whispers to you who you should be. It screams at you what you should achieve. It buries you beneath layers of identities that never belonged to you. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you lost touch with the most important voice of all, the still, small voice of your soul, the eternal whisper of God within you. You began to live for the applause, the approval, the validation. You became entangled in the opinions of others. Your worth rose and fell with how the world responded to you. And little by little, the purity of your inner voice was buried beneath the rubble of noise. But here is the mystery. God, in His mercy, will never allow your soul to be drowned forever. So, He does what only love can do. He begins to separate you, not because you chose it, not because you wanted it, but because your soul was crying for it. This is why isolation comes like a sudden shift in the wind. Friendships fade, opportunities close, crowds thin out, the familiar noise disappears. And at first, it feels terrifying, like death, like loss, like abandonment. But in truth, it is salvation, because without silence, you would never hear again. Without being hidden, you would never remember the voice that was buried. Take a breath right now. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice all the noise in your mind, the racing thoughts, the fears, the endless comparisons. Now imagine a veil being placed gently over it all. A veil that softens the noise. A veil that silences the clamor. A veil that leaves only one thing left: the stillness of God's presence. This is the sacred veil of isolation. It is not punishment. It is a covering. While you were pulled away, God's hidden hand in your retreat. You didn't choose the loneliness. He chose you. You didn't plan the isolation. It unfolded around you. One by one, the people, the situations, the distractions that once defined you, they dissolved, and you wondered why. You questioned yourself. You thought something must be wrong with you. But I tell you, nothing is wrong. Something is right. You see, when God has chosen you for something higher, He will not allow you to stay buried in the lower. When God has called you into truth, He will not let you drown in illusions. So He pulls you away. He allows rejection to sever you from what was never yours. He allows silence to detach you from the dependence on voices that cannot lead you home. He allows loneliness to strip you of false attachments. It feels cruel in the moment, but later you see the mercy. You see how every closed door was protection, how every betrayal was revelation, how every disappointment was redirection. God's hand has been hidden in your retreat, and though you couldn't see it, you were being led step by step into the sacred place where your soul could breathe again. Pause with me here. Think back to the doors that closed in your life, the relationships that ended, the people who walked away. You thought you lost something, but what if you were spared? What if the very thing you thought you needed was the very thing that would have destroyed you? Now breathe and whisper quietly to yourself, I was not abandoned. I was protected. Isolation as a womb, not a tomb. The human mind fears isolation because to the mind, isolation feels like death. But to the soul, isolation is not a tomb. It is a womb. Think of a child hidden in the mother's womb. No light, no applause, no recognition, only silence, growth, and unseen formation. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but within a miracle is taking place. A life is being knit together in secret. So too with your season of hiddenness. You are not dying. You are becoming. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. The sacred veil of isolation is the divine womb of transformation. And when the time is right, when the formation is complete, you will emerge, not as who you once were, but as who you were always destined to be. Do not fear the silence. Do not resent the hiddenness. It is holy. It is necessary. It is where God prepares His chosen ones. Close your eyes now. Place your hand over your heart. Feel the rhythm of your breath, the stillness of this moment. Whisper to yourself, my isolation is not a tomb. It is a womb. I am not behind. I am being formed. This is the sacred veil of isolation. It is not punishment. It is divine preparation. You are hidden because you are chosen. Chapter 2. Loneliness is not emptiness. It is fullness waiting, the illusion of abandonment. Loneliness often arrives like a shadow. You feel it late at night when the world grows quiet. You feel it in the mornings when no one calls your name. You feel it in the spaces where love used to live, but now only echoes remain. And in those moments, the mind tells you a story. The story of abandonment. The story that you are unwanted, unloved, unworthy. The story that everyone else has moved forward, while you have been left behind. But this story is not truth. It is an illusion, a cruel trick of perception. Because loneliness is not proof of your abandonment. It is proof of your calling. God has removed the voices around you so that you could remember the voice within you. The world may have stepped back, but heaven has stepped closer. People may have walked away, but God has not moved. The silence you fear is the sacred space where the eternal one whispers. Close your eyes, take a slow breath in, and release it gently. Now, recall a moment when you felt most alone. The sting of silence, the ache of absence. Stay with that memory for a moment. And now ask yourself, even then, was I truly alone? Feel the truth rise up. The presence was always there. God never left. The illusion was abandonment, but the reality was companionship. How rejection reveals the truth. Rejection cuts deeply. It makes you question your worth. It makes you doubt your beauty, your strength, your significance. But rejection is never the end of the story. It is revelation. It reveals who truly belongs in your life and who does not. When people turn their backs, they are simply showing you their true reflection. When doors close, They are showing you that those paths were never your destiny. And in the quiet, you hear it, the whisper, the eternal voice of God within, reminding you that you are never alone. Whisper now to yourself, my loneliness is not emptiness. It is the place where I meet God. So remember this truth. Your loneliness is not abandonment. It is alignment. Your rejection is not loss. It is liberation. Your isolation is not emptiness. It is fullness waiting for you to notice it. Because in the end, the world may walk away, but God never does. And the silence you feared is the sacred space where you hear Him most clearly. Chapter 3. Divine Protection Through Rejection. Why certain doors never opened. Hidden mercy. Think of Joseph. He dreamed of greatness. He saw visions of ruling, of being lifted high, and yet his own brothers rejected him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and thought they had silenced his destiny. But in truth, their rejection was protection. Had Joseph remained in his father's house, he would have never stepped into Egypt. And had he not stepped into Egypt, he would have never entered Pharaoh's palace. What looked like rejection was redirection. What looked like cruelty was actually God's hidden mercy, moving him into position for a greater purpose. The door to his brother's approval closed forever, but the throne of Egypt opened before him. So it is with you. Some doors were shut because they were too small for the size of your calling. Some people pushed you out because you were never meant to stay where they were comfortable. Your rejection was not a sign of weakness. It was the divine hand of God moving you to where you truly belong. Betrayals as revelations, disappointments as protection. Consider David, anointed by Samuel, chosen by God, yet rejected by his own father who didn't even invite him to the gathering. Rejected by his brothers who mocked him on the battlefield. Rejected by Saul who tried to kill him. But every rejection revealed a truth, that his kingship would not come by the hand of man, but by the hand of God. Had Saul embraced him, David might have become dependent on Saul's approval. Had his brothers supported him, he might have sought validation from family. But because of their rejection, David leaned fully into God. And in doing so, he discovered the strength that made him king. Or think of Jesus, rejected in his own hometown, despised by the very people he came to save, betrayed by Judas, denied by Peter, abandoned by his disciples. Yet every betrayal pushed him closer to the cross. And the cross was the very place where redemption was fulfilled. So too in your life. The betrayals that cut you open, they were not accidents. They were revelations. They forced you to see truth. They pulled you away from those who could not carry you forward. Every disappointment has been protection. Every betrayal has been revelation. Every rejection has been mercy. The pruning of relationships to make space for destiny. Look at Esther, a young Jewish girl, orphaned, hidden in the king's palace. She could have resented her hiddenness. She could have mourned what she lost. But in time, it became clear. Her hidden season was preparation for the moment she would save her people. Had she remained unknown, she would have remained untouched by destiny. But her pruning, her isolation, her removal from everything familiar, it was God's careful hand, positioning her for greatness. And remember Gideon, surrounded by 32,000 men. Yet God reduced his army to just 300. Why? Because too many people in your life dilutes your dependence on God. Too many voices around you can drown out the truth. So he prunes. He cuts away. He removes. It feels like loss, but it is love. It feels like reduction, but it is preparation. When the branches fall away, the fruit becomes possible. when the people fall away, the destiny becomes clearer. You are not being diminished. You are being refined. God prunes because you are chosen. So look again at your rejections. See them now not as curses, but as divine shields. Joseph was rejected, and it placed him in position. David was rejected, and it revealed his true strength. Esther was hidden, and it prepared her for destiny. Jesus was betrayed, and it fulfilled redemption. And you were rejected because you are being redirected. You were pruned because you are being prepared. You were hidden because you were chosen. Whisper now, my rejection was my protection. My betrayal was my revelation. My pruning is my preparation. Chapter 4. The stripping away of noise, trauma, and generational burdens that were never yours. Much of the pain you carried was never yours to begin with. You inherited beliefs. You inherited fears. You inherited traumas passed down like invisible chains, woven into family patterns, cultural systems, generational stories. They told you who to be, what to fear, what to hide, and what to chase. You thought it was your identity, but in truth it was noise. Noise layered upon you until you forgot the sound of your own soul. And so God led you into isolation, not to punish you, but to free you, because only in silence can the chains be heard clattering to the floor. Only in stillness can you begin to notice. This pain is not mine. This fear is not mine. This shame was never mine to carry. Isolation is where you return what was never yours, is where you give back the burdens of generations and walk instead in the freedom of God's presence. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Imagine yourself carrying a heavy backpack. Every belief, every trauma, every weight that was never yours inside it. Now, in the stillness, see yourself setting it down. Hear the sound of it hitting the ground. Feel the lightness in your body. Whisper, these burdens are not mine. I am free. The false identity created by noise. Noise creates masks. It teaches you to perform. It tells you to be strong when you feel weak. It tells you to smile when you want to weep. It tells you to succeed, achieve, impress, even when your soul is suffocating. Slowly, you become a character in someone else's play. You are the mask of perfection. You speak the lines of expectation. You live for applause that never satisfies. But in isolation, the masks fall away. The performance ends. The stage goes dark, and you are left with the raw, unpolished truth of yourself. At first, this is terrifying because you've learned to hide behind the mask. But as the silence deepens, you begin to see the false identity was never your salvation. It was your prison. Isolation strips away the masks so that you can finally meet the person God created beneath them. Not the image, not the performer, not the pleaser, but the soul, the chosen one, the child of God. Pause. Place your hand gently over your heart. Ask yourself, what masks have I been wearing? What false identities have I been living through? Now breathe and whisper softly, I release the mask. I return to my true self. Isolation as a refining fire that burns illusions away. Gold is purified by fire. The heat rises, the impurities surface, and what remains is the purest form. So too with your soul. Isolation is the fire. Loneliness is the heat. The illusions rise to the surface. Your fears, your doubts, your ego, your false beliefs. It feels unbearable at times. You wonder if you're breaking. You wonder if you'll survive. But in truth, you are being refined. The fire is not destroying you. It is cleansing you. The illusions burn away. The belief that you are unworthy. The fear of being alone. The dependence on others for validation. All of it burned away in the sacred fire of isolation. And what remains? The gold of your true being, the diamond of your soul, the voice of God, clear and unburied at last. Close your eyes. See yourself standing in a gentle fire. It does not consume you. It only burns away what is false. Whisper, I'm not being destroyed. I am being refined. Only truth remains. This is the purpose of your hidden season. It strips away the noise. It removes the burdens that were never yours. It unmasks the false identities you wore. It refines you like gold and fire. So when you feel the silence pressing in, when you feel the loneliness ache, remember, this is not destruction. This is purification. You're being stripped of the noise so that you can finally hear the eternal whisper of God within. Chapter 5. The meeting with your true self. Beyond the masks, rediscovering the soul. Think of Jacob, a man who spent his whole life wearing masks. He deceived his brother, tricked his father, lived under false identities, always trying to grab what he thought would make him whole. But one night, when he was left alone in the wilderness, with no one left to deceive, no one left to impress, he wrestled with God, and in that sacred encounter, the mask of Jacob fell away, and the truth of Israel was born. It was only in solitude, only in silence, only in the stripping away of who he pretended to be, that he finally discovered who he truly was. So it is with you. The masks you wore may have helped you survive, but they were never meant to define you. And in your hidden season, God wrestles them off of you, not to harm you, but to rename you, to reveal the soul that has been buried beneath layers of survival. The ego's surrender in silence. Remember Moses, once a prince of Egypt, powerful, respected, seen. His ego was large, his identity tied to the palace. But after his failure, he fled into the desert. 40 years of silence, 40 years of obscurity, 40 years of isolation that stripped away the noise of status and pride. And it was there, in the silence of the wilderness, that he encountered the burning bush, there that he heard the voice of God, there that his ego bowed, and his true calling rose. Had he never been hidden, he would have lived as a prince. But because he was stripped and refined, he arose as a prophet. This is what silence does. It breaks the illusion of ego. It dismantles the false self, so that when you finally hear God's whisper, you are ready to listen, discovering God within. Think of Elijah. After his greatest victory, he ran in fear, alone in the wilderness, weary and broken. He begged for his life to end, but God met him there, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the gentle whisper. Alone, stripped of all distractions, Elijah discovered that the presence was never absent. It had only been buried beneath the noise. And so it is with you. Your loneliness is not abandonment. It is the space where the whisper becomes clear. It is where you realize that God has always been within you, closer than breath, steadier than heartbeat, truer than thought. And think of the butterfly. Once a crawling creature, it enters the cocoon, a place of isolation, silence, darkness. From the outside, it looks like death, but inside, a miracle is unfolding. The old dissolves, the new is formed, and in the right time, the wings open. Your cocoon is not your coffin. Your silence is not your death. It is your transformation. So look again at your isolation. Jacob was renamed there. Moses was called there. Elijah was restored there. The butterfly was reborn there. And so too with you. The masks are falling. The ego is surrendering. And God within is being revealed. Whisper now to yourself, my isolation is my cocoon. My silence is my meeting place. Here I find myself. Here I find God. Chapter 6. The voice of God emerging in the stillness. The gentle whisper beyond the noise. In the beginning, your mind was loud. It shouted with fears. It rattled with doubts. It replayed betrayals. It carried the echoes of 1,000 expectations. And in that storm you asked, where is God? Why can't I hear him? But God was not absent. His voice was never gone. It was simply drowned beneath the clamor of your own noise. Think of Elijah on the mountain. There was wind. There was earthquake. There was fire. But God was not in any of them. God was in the still, small whisper. And so it is with you. When the noise is stripped away, when silence presses in like a blanket around your soul, you begin to hear it, a gentle whisper that has been speaking all along. Not loud, not forceful, not demanding, but steady, soft, unshakable. The voice that says, I am here. I have always been here. You're mine. Close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath. Notice the spaces between your thoughts. Notice the stillness beneath the noise. In that silence, whisper back, speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. How God's voice differs from the voice of fear. Fear is loud. Fear rushes. Fear condemns. Fear makes you feel small, inadequate, and unworthy. But the voice of God is different. God's voice does not condemn. It convicts gently. God's voice does not rush. It moves in peace. God's voice does not belittle. It calls you higher. The voice of fear comes from the outside, shouting like a storm. The voice of God rises from within, flowing like a river. Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. His voice is the shepherd's call, not driving you with force, but guiding you with love. So now, in the stillness, you learn to discern this anxious thought, fear, this condemning voice, ego, but this steady whisper of peace, that is God. And as you lean into it, you discover that guidance has always been near. God was not silent. You were simply surrounded by too much noise to notice. Pause. Place your hand over your chest. Notice a thought that makes you anxious. Now notice another that brings peace. Ask yourself, which of these carries love? Which of these carries truth? Whisper, I follow the voice of peace. I follow the voice of God. Walking with the inner shepherd. The voice of God is not just heard in silence. It becomes a compass for your entire life. It is the shepherd's staff that guides you through valleys, the inner flame that lights your path. Think of David. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He walked through shadows, but he feared no evil, because the voice of God walked with him. Or think of Samuel as a boy, alone in the temple at night. He heard a voice calling his name. At first, he thought it was human, but when he listened deeper, he discovered it was the voice of God. So it is with you. God's voice emerges in the stillness, but it does not remain confined to silence. It begins to guide you through daily life, nudging, whispering, correcting, comforting. This is what isolation prepares you for, to live not by the noise of the world, but by the whisper of God, to walk with the shepherd within, and to never again mistake loneliness for abandonment. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet valley. Feel the presence beside you. Hear the whisper, do not be afraid. I am with you. Whisper in return, lead me, Lord. I will follow. This is the gift of hiddenness. This is why you were separated, silenced, stripped, not to punish you, but to tune your soul to the frequency of God's voice. The world shouts, but God whispers. And in the stillness, you discover that his whisper is enough. You're no longer lost. You're no longer abandoned. You're no longer defined by noise. You are led by the shepherd's voice. And that voice is the anchor of your soul. Chapter 7, Refinement, Preparation, and Emergence. The refining fire has done its work. Every chosen one passes through fire. Joseph passed through betrayal before wearing the crown. David passed through rejection before sitting on the throne. Moses passed through wilderness before speaking with God face to face. Even Jesus passed through 40 days in the desert before beginning his ministry. The fire is never wasted. It burns away what cannot remain. It forges strength that cannot be shaken. It chisels the soul into a vessel fit for glory. And now, the fire in your life has done its work. The loneliness you thought would kill you, it purified you. The rejections you thought would destroy you, they refined you. The silence you thought was abandonment, it tuned your soul to God's whisper. You are not the same person who entered this season. You are stronger. You are lighter. You are truer. You are golden. The refining fire has done its work. And now, the masterpiece is ready to be revealed. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself as gold pulled from fire. See the impurities gone. See the radiance shining. Whisper, the fire did not destroy me. It refined me. I am pure. I am ready. The preparation for what lies ahead. Your hidden season was never about delay. It was preparation. Every silence was training your ears. Every pruning was making space for new fruit. Every rejection was redirecting your steps to destiny. Think of Esther. Years of hiddenness before one decisive moment that saved a nation. Think of Joseph. Years in prison before one word lifted him to Pharaoh's right hand. Think of David. Years in caves before one anointing seated him as king. Preparation often feels like obscurity, but what God does in private is the foundation for what he will reveal in public. So do not despise the season that felt small. Do not resent the years that felt wasted. They were not wasted. They were woven into the preparation of your soul. They were sharpening you, humbling you, grounding you, deepening you. And now you are ready. Not perfect, not flawless, but refined enough to carry the weight of the calling God has placed within you. Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what has my hidden season prepared me for? What strength do I now carry that I didn't before? Whisper, my hidden years were not wasted. They were training. They were preparation. The emergence of the chosen one. And now comes the emergence, the unveiling, the stepping forward, not in pride, not in ego, but in quiet confidence, in divine authority, in the knowing that you are chosen. You do not emerge carrying the noise of the past. You emerge carrying the whisper of God. You do not emerge seeking validation from men. You emerge rooted in the love of God. You do not emerge fearful of rejection. You emerge refined, untouchable, anchored in truth. This is the fruit of your hidden season. The world thought you were forgotten. People thought you were behind, but you were never behind. You were hidden, protected, prepared. And now, when you step out, you will carry the fragrance of one who has walked with God in silence. You will carry the clarity of one who has shed illusions. You will carry the strength of one who has been through fire and did not break. This is your emergence, not the old self, but the refined self, the chosen self, the soul lit with God's fire. Close your eyes. See yourself stepping out of a cave into sunlight. Feel the warmth on your face. Hear the whisper, "This is your time." Whisper back, "I am ready. I am chosen. I walk in God's light." The benediction of emergence. Your isolation was not punishment. It was refinement. Your loneliness was not abandonment. It was protection. Your rejection was not destruction. It was preparation. You were hidden because you were chosen. And now, you rise, not as the one buried beneath noise, but as the one who walks in divine clarity. Not as the one broken by betrayal, but as the one refined by fire. Not as the one lost in silence, but as the one who carries God's whisper into the world. This is your emergence. This is your unveiling. This is your time. Whisper with me now. I was hidden because I was chosen. My isolation was my refinement. My silence was my preparation. And now I emerge, refined, prepared, chosen, carrying the voice of God within. Amen.